play a game now.
Okay.
But don't worry. It will be easy for you. You're an author after all, the best there ever was, some say. Tell me a story. But make it good. I won't accept anything less than extraordinary. Just feed me the words, and I will lend my voice to you, as I always have. Let's begin. It was a mild autumn night in the little town of Carpiano, Italy. Caroline lowered the lens of her camera and glanced down at the medieval altar she had just taken a picture of. She was standing inside the town's cathedral, which she had sneaked into earlier. Taking pictures was strictly forbidden inside the cathedral. However, she had been determined to do so, and had therefore entered the cathedral after opening hours. I hate this Caroline character, by the way. The way she is written is just dull. Try to make this more interesting once the story goes on, would you?
Okay.
Anyway, Caroline turned to rush back to the exit. To her horror, she found that the doors were now locked. What do you think Caroline should do next, to make this story more entertaining?
Well, I mean, she could call for help.
Help, Caroline shouted. Her voice echoed in the vast cathedral space. Suddenly, the heavy doors tilted towards her, seeming to crash down upon her. What now? Caroline violently rattled on the door's handle. To her surprise, the heavy cathedral doors suddenly tilted towards her, ready to crash down upon her.
Hide behind curtain.
Caroline quickly hid behind the heavy curtain beside her. I guess that works? Suddenly, a strange sound came from the other side of the cathedral. What was that?
Hooded monk sounds more realistic and fun than skeletons.
It sounded like chanting. Distant at first, but getting louder and louder. Out of the corner of her eye she saw hooded figures file in from the far end of the cathedral. 3, 5, 10. Dozens of hooded monks were now there, and they were moving towards her. Monks? In a cathedral? How extraordinary. Some storyteller you are. Let's see how we can spice things up a bit.
Yeah, that's more realistic, but I guess skeletons could have worked.
Dozens of hooded monks were now there, and they were moving towards her. To her horror, she realized they were holding machetes. Fear overwhelmed Caroline. She only had a few moments left before the monks noticed her, so she...
I don't know. I guess reciting scriptures?
Oh, I like this. Now we're getting creative. Let's do this. Caroline pulled out the small Bible she carried with her at all times, exactly for situations like these. She started to recite one of her favorite passages from the Book of Moses at the top of her voice. Suddenly, Caroline saw something in the corner of her eye. It was a back door. Relieved, she quietly dragged herself out of the church and onto the town square. She ran across the square. The square was
filled with people.
To Caroline's relief, the square was filled with tourists enjoying the mild evening.
Scream for help.
Caroline desperately called out for help. A man stepped towards her from an alley. As she bolted towards him in relief, he let out a shrill laugh. Before she realized, he lifted his hands to her neck and cracked it with one smooth motion. Her body hit the ground with a thump, and it stayed there until the local priest found it next morning. That was a bit anticlimactic. Don't you think that punishment builds character? Let's try to make the story more interesting for our dear Caroline this time around. Let's start at the beginning. It was a mild autumn night in the little town of Carpiano, Italy. Caroline lowered the lens of her camera and glanced down at the medieval altar. Blah 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 blah. We know all that already. Let's get to the juicy parts.
Alright.
Caroline turned to rush back to the exit. To her horror, the doors were now barred.
Grab the door.
Caroline grabbed the metal bars and shook them violently. Wow. What a genius move. Surely that will solve everything. There is a sudden noise from above. It sounded like the ceiling was about to collapse on top of her. What does she do now?
Hide behind the curtain. Don't look up.
Caroline quickly hid behind the heavy curtain nearby. We'll let her off easy on this one. On second thought, why should I? There was a crash. Caroline was suddenly showered with broken glass. The chandelier had fallen from the ceiling. It crashed with enough force to pierce through the curtain, shards cutting through Caroline's skin. Caroline took a moment to compose herself. She was confused and scared, but still determined to find a way out of this cursed cathedral. Not even a second passed by when a strange sound came from the other side of the cathedral. What was it?
Skeletons carrying shotguns. That sounds fun. Where do they get the shotguns from, though?
Caroline heard something strange. An odd, indescribable sound. Like something rattling. Yeah. Scary skeletons with shotguns. What else? Aha, I got it. On the other side of the cathedral, chanting machetes come marching in. They start hacking on the fancy skeletons with machetes. The skeletons in turn begin shooting the monks. A full-on battle ignites. What does the poor protagonist do now?
She joins the battle. Because Caroline is fearless. Caroline's strong.
Something came over Caroline. Unthinking, she marched forward, camera raised high, and threw it at the nearest monk, clocking him in the head. The monk lost his footing and fell to the ground. The fighting stopped. In the ensuing silence, all eyes, both dead and alive, turned towards Caroline. Suddenly, Caroline noticed the crack in the nearby wall. Stray swings and bullets had dealt enough damage to make a fairly big hole. Seizing this opportunity, she tried open some more with her fingers, the structure crumbling between her fingers, and then squeezed through. Sighing in relief, she dragged herself outside towards the town square. She started to run across the square. The square was
Empty.
to Caroline's despair, the square was empty. No, you know what? I don't like that. I'm gonna tell it like this. The square was crowded with tourists.
Sure. Run.
Caroline ran past cafes and restaurants. The area was packed with people, sipping wine and chatting merrily, but no one seemed to mind the bewildered woman moving past them. In the end, she left the town square and started to make her way back to her hotel. The story overall felt kind of bland. Why is it so hard to write a good story? Let's try this one last time. But let's get right to the punishment this time around, shall we?
Sure.
So, the town of Carpiano, Italy. Caroline in the cathedral. The doors have entirely vanished and Caroline is desperate.
Bang.
Caroline banged her fists on the wall where just a second ago, the doors had been. Just when Caroline thought things could not get any crazier, a cracking sound echoed down from the ceiling. She glanced upwards. To her horror, the roof of the cathedral was about to cave in, about to bury her underneath it.
Print.
Caroline broke into a sprint, but a brick fell upon her head a second later. At this moment, a strange sound came from the other side of the cathedral. What was it?
Monks or skeletons, whatever.
Caroline heard something strange. You know what? I didn't really like this part last time around. How about this instead? There was a giant wave of blood gushing towards Caroline. It engulfed her and she slipped, landing face first in it.
And blood.
Now this is the stuff that legends are made of. The drama. I love it. Caroline fully immersed herself in the pool of blood to hide from the skeletons or monks or whatever. This was a poor choice, however, as she choked on the blood and was forced to leave her newly found hiding spot again. Suddenly, Caroline saw something in the corner of her eye. It was a small door. Relieved, she started to drag herself out of the church and onto the town square, leaving a trail of blood behind her. She ran across the square, clutching her wounds. The square was
really crowded.
The square was crowded with tourists. Nobody seemed to mind that mere minutes ago, the ancient cathedral's roof had caved in. Nobody minded the bloodied woman emerging from it, either. She ran past the restaurants, clutching her right side. The people who had been chatting merrily and sipping their wine just a minute ago suddenly turned towards her. She realized that they had a hungry look in their eyes. Come to think of it, they've been like that ever since Caroline set foot in this town. How come she had never questioned this before? What kind of protagonist is she? Mindless and poorly written. And now, she was going to bleed to death, in the streets of Carpiano, ripped apart, by the mob of locals. Now, that's a riveting story. Oh, look at that, the sun's coming up already. We've spent the entire night working on the story of Caroline. I am pretty pleased with the result. I think we can send this to the editor now, but is it really good enough? Come to think of it, it's a pretty fucked up thing, punishing a female character like this, and enjoying it this much.
But we do. I do nothing. You're the one that wanted the story. This man was going crazy about the story, trying to punish her. I was trying to be, you know, realistic and yeah. I guess we'll read this wordy about the author. Born in the late 20th century, he was the last child to a family of 10, and already in his early years, his misogynism came to surface. Raised by his 8 sisters due to the, as he named it, demasculization of his manhood, money was always scarce, and therefore our little narrator experienced the first couple of years of his life in female-coded clothing. Becoming more and more enraged by his outer appearance, he left the family, started working as a plumber, and began writing stories like these. These texts describe the full embodiment of misogynistic nature of our author's persona. However, after concluding that he'll probably die an incel, became the #1 sperm donor in history. His theory was to produce as many descendants as possible to create more misogynists in our world. However, he did not think this through, and as many of the descendants became people fighting for equality all around the globe. That was a desperate attempt, therefore backfired. He even went so far as to make his face become a logo of the so-called far-left feminists, even misogynist me love movement. Slogan, know your enemy but better go love them, and use their face for feminist movements to make them even more enraged. Okay, that was a lot. But so yeah, this is the Curse of the Narrator. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, this story. Of course, if you did, you want to play this for yourself, then everything will be in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, of course, you know, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And hopefully you had a good day yesterday and better tomorrow, and I will catch y'all in the next video.